Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Things We Know. I'm Lisa Callahan.
And I'm Kari Morin.
And today we're going to riff on a topic that we've had a lot of fun with these days because, again, as women of a certain age, and which I'm quite frankly, I'm going to stop saying, we're just women who have
Yeah,
no fucks left to give. It
right.
just happens to be that we're in our 50s. But, with not having any fucks left to give, we also don't really stress over this. And that is the idea of balance. Work-life balance, like that's been I know, unbalanced. But again, we hear it everywhere, right? Like this idea of work-life balance. What the fuck does that even mean?
Well, yeah, it's apparently the goal, and I don't get it. I think, whether you see it, are you balancing your priorities? Are you balancing your responsibilities? Balancing roles at work and at home,
I mean, if you mean, am I
self-care, all
spinning a
that.
lot of dishes then, or a lot of plates, then yeah, I'm balancing all that.
Yeah, I mean, can I walk on both feet? Can I remember to, well, some days, remember to like take care of myself and my responsibilities? I mean, I guess that's what it is.
Yeah, I guess. But again, as coaches, we've come into contact with so many women who come to us thinking they're out of balance. They've been told this there's such a thing as work-life balance, and consequently they must be doing it wrong because they don't feel like they have balance, whether it's work life, family life, whatever it might be. And I'm going to call bullshit.
Totally. Because what is balance, right? Like, what is it? Um, I really love this topic, and part of it like fires me up and gets me like, and then the other is like, I just enjoy talking about it because if we all feel this way, we're not getting it wrong. And is it this, like, first of all, how you define anything matters, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, in yoga or in like a lot of different, sports or forms of exercise or dance, balance is literally, like you want to have like things distributed evenly, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to balance your checkbook, you want it like you want things to like not be tilted one way or the other, right?
Right.
And so I guess when women think they're getting it wrong, I think they realize what they really are saying is I can't do it all because you're not supposed to. I
Right.
think
But
that they
again, we
think
were
balance,
fed that at some
right?
point, right? That is probably mostly in the 80s, this idea of women can have it all. We can have babies and we can work and we can run the house and we can blah, 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 blah. And first off, do we want that? And
Right.
second off, says who?
Yeah, and I was just thinking this was when we were talking about this earlier, like balance, if it's an equation, I don't think it's a sum of addition. I think it has to involve subtraction or division, right?
Yeah.
Definitely division of labor because you cannot if balance is getting to a place of ease and presence, because that's how I would like to define it, at least
Mm-hmm.
for this part of the conversation, right? If balance means I feel good about the parts of my life. I feel good in maybe not perfect, but I feel pretty good about my relationships, my responsibilities, and like my body, how I'm feeling in my body, how I'm taking care of myself. Doesn't mean perfection, doesn't mean
Right.
you don't feel some room for improvement, maybe, not necessarily, but like I feel like I'm doing a decent job. In our world of coaching, we do this wheel of life, right? Where like
Yep.
how would you describe it? Because like, is it how I'm trying to remember? Is it how
So
you
the
rate yourself?
No, it's so in the wheel of life, and it can be different for different areas. But if you were just looking at the general wheel of life, and I'll throw a picture up of it on our Instagram and Facebook. Um, and actually on my mailing list, I recently sent out a little video explaining the wheel of life. But essentially, it is this wheel, and it's divided up into like I'm going to say 8 pieces of pie, so to speak, and each one has a name next to it. So it's like community, work, health, uh, cooking at home. It's a general holistic look at life. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to put a dot on each line, and the closer it is to the outside of the circle, the happier you are in that area, and the closer it is to the inner circle, the less happy you are, the more discontent. And so you put these dots and then you connect the dots, and no one ever has a perfect wheel. It's often very weirdly shaped. And the point of that is to look at it and say, okay, if these are the areas I'm discontent in, what would I like to be experiencing differently? Like, so for instance, one
The
of them
point
is
is not to have a perfect circle. It is
you never will.
to give you information.
Yeah, you never will. And you can do this wheel of life every single day, and it could look different every single day. And also it is information. It's sort of factual in the moment. But like, for instance, home cooking, mine is always going to be low, but it's not because I'm discontent. It's because I don't do it. But am I looking to put more attention there? I'm not really, and so it's more about the idea of all these things that roll around in anybody's head, women in particular, because we have the ability to hold a lot of possibility in our head. And so when all of that's rolling around in our head, it oftentimes the saboteur, the critter brain, comes in and tells us we're less than, which is why these women are coming to us, right? And so if you get it out and down on paper, all of a sudden you can make a more like logical decision and go, oh yeah, I'm not happy with home cooking, but I also don't care. Yeah, which I guess then you could argue that it should be up higher, but whatever. So it is a fascinating way of just taking everything that rolls around in our brain and getting it down on paper, which I always think is valuable.
Yeah, God, I love this. And I like the way you described it, because I use the big five much more now than the wheel of life.
Yeah, me too.
Which we've talked about in previous episodes. But okay, so what I think we're saying too is that oftentimes what we think is out of balance is us not checking in with the things we think we want.
Yeah.
Or we're supposed to want versus like what we really want. Right. So if you like, I think it all goes back to, what do you want in life? Like, what would you like to be experiencing instead?
Yeah.
What would quote unquote balance or ease and joy look like in your life? Right. And so it's like, if somebody identifies, well, I want to feel really powerful in my career, but I also want time with, the people I love. And
yeah.
I really just want time with myself. Okay. So there you go. There's like, so then it's like, because if you want to, really, shock yourself, make a list of how you spend your time and compare it to the list of things you care about. And that will be like your biggest clue, right?
Yep.
And that's why I think we think we're out of balance, because all the things we're spending our time doing are the things we think we should want, or things we think we're supposed to be doing or be better at, or, all the shoulds, when over here is the answer to this question of balance.
But I think, when we talk about balance, I'm gonna throw out a shout out. I think she's listening to the pod. I know she was at the beginning. A former colleague of mine, Nikki Neagle, and she would say, she was a Weight Watcher leader with me, and she'd say, when you stand, because you don't balance on your 2 feet, right? Like everybody can stand on 2 feet. So balance really indicates like you're on 1 foot, right? And on 1 foot, you're never steady. So she would always reference it around like the scale, like balance is even when you're on 1 foot, you are always wobbly. There's never it's not steady. And so if you have 3 things, if you have, I want to excel in my career, I also want time for myself, I also want time for my family, that's great. But you've got to realize that they're never all going to happen at the same time. There's going to be time where you are more focused on your career. And maybe that's because you're working on a big project that could turn into a promotion. There's going to be time when you're more focused on your family. Maybe your kids are young and you're running them all over God's creation. There's going to be time when you need alone time. I have entered that space in my life. And it doesn't mean the other 3 things or the other 2 things aren't important anymore. It's just that scales don't sit still. They weeble wobble.
No,
and
totally.
so this idea of balance as being steady doesn't even fucking make sense.
I love that you just brought this up, because I wanted to remember this and you just made me remember it, which is something I learned from an entrepreneurial mentor early on. And when I started this part of my career, which was, balance is what we want balance is what we're trying to achieve when we want things to stay the same, right? Like you want things equal. And that's okay. Like you could really, this was when she was trying to teach me and others the 90-day run concept, right? So for people who don't know that, whether you have a health goal or a business goal or something, there's a concept that, you put your head down for 90 days, tell everyone around you, this is what I'm doing, so that like you can really focus and kind of let go of the normal things you would be paying attention to and just get permission from everyone. Like, this is what I'm going to really be doing. Like, I'm not abandoning you, my kids or my spouse. I'm just going to work on this. Right.
Yep.
And that, like, when you come up for air, you've really moved the dial, you've really kind of up leveled, and then you want to integrate it and get in balance for a while, see how that works before you lean again into your next 90-day run. Okay. But her point was exactly what you just said, right? You want to tip in the direction of whatever you're trying to grow. And you're right. Like, it is really unrealistic. It's why I hate the word balance, and why, we're going to get to this other word that I like better, but you want to tip in the direction. Like, there are times when I have to focus on my family and Griffin's health, right? There are times when all I want to do is like, how do we grow this pod? And how do we, like, there's times where I just want to like dive in, go away for the weekend by myself and like do my work, right? And like, and create. There are times when I just need to focus on my body and movement and getting healthy again. And then hopefully I get to times where like those things are kind of running well, so that I can just sit back and receive and enjoy. Right.
Yep.
So I love that you brought that up, because it is a tilt and then a integrate and a tilt and an integrate, so balance. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, and I think, it strikes me just because of the week we're recording, and I was listening to whatever current pod's out right now. And there was I think this was maybe something you talked about in a different week. But anyways, you talked about the time when you had done a lot, you had coached for 6 hours, and then you took a break, and then you made dinner, and then you felt bad about the break you took. I think that also the key in this is when you integrate and everything's kind of running and you quote unquote coast, that's okay too. That's part of this balance. Because if you are constantly leaning in and not allowing things to unfold, you're going to burn yourself out. So I just threw in a whole bunch of pods right there. There's a whole bunch.
I love that.
To listen to.
And you got to remind me if this was a conversation with you or just something I came across it reading, but I can't remember because, menopause brain. But this idea that our generation has often, and like it was imposed upon us, and we've definitely, I'll speak for myself, but I feel like you and I have talked about this. Like, we definitely, accidentally imposed it on our kids sometimes, which is this idea that we should be productive. This idea, I think you're way healthier at this than I have been, although I've done a good job working on it. This idea that, I think about my sister and I, partly it was my dad didn't want us getting sun. But if we were out, like laying out by the pool or something, or like, outside getting sun, and the garage door opened and he pulled in, we would pop up, throw some t-shirts on, and like start doing dishes. Oh, and I think part of it was we should never be late. We should never be sitting around. And that idea that, like looking at your teenager, go get a job. Like, there's a lot of really good principles in all of this. So I don't want to disparage that. And right. The ideas of like, hey, let's like, let's rise up, let's try to be our best. But there is a part of the culture that seeps into this whole discussion around, like shoulds, right? Yep. And what we've done is said, like, there can be no downtime or else you're lazy. There can be no downtime or else you're missing an opportunity to improve or do something better. There can be no downtime because you're never going to get in balance of the things you want to do. So it's this weird cyclical thing that just kind of seeps in there.
Well, you say I'm healthier at it, but again, I'm going to throw in yet another pod episode. Let's see how many we can get into this pod episode. But as a manifester, part of what I am in my human design is I am supposed to relax, right? So like I'm supposed to initiate, and then I need sleep. So Amy Douglas talked about this in her episode around, she grew up around manifesting generators, which are the Energizer bunnies, go, 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 go. And because she wasn't like that, of course, she didn't know this at the time. She didn't know the language around it. She was looked at in her family as being lazy. But the reality of it is she's a manifester. We impact and we initiate, and then we sit back. And it's not about being lazy. It's about that's not how we're built. So I might look to be healthier at it because I don't know any other way to be.
Yeah, I would say that you're a great role model for me that way. And also, I've obviously worked on this for a while.
Yeah.
I try to not feel guilt and also like impose anything on my kids when there's downtime, because I do think this idea that some people call balance, but this idea of ease and joy, right?
Yeah.
You'll never access it unless you have some downtime to integrate all that you've been doing. So, yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, what word do you like better?
Harmony.
Thus the title of this
Yeah.
pod.
Right. So I like, yeah, I was acting all anticipatory. You're like, nah, it's in the title, doofus. I like harmony because of exactly what you said, and because we're musical people.
Yep.
I like the idea, or I like the idea that like some things are the lead notes and some things are the tambourines, right? And they can switch places. They can have,
More
they
cowbell.
yeah, the cowbell, they can run in the background or they can be central.
Yep.
We're definitely gonna have to put more cowbell in. But yeah, I like the idea that when we learn how to access, well, first of all, gain support, because we can't achieve harmony without like a team, right? Like that's a band. Like harmony comes from more than one person. So when we can plug into and access community and support and exchange, then we can really trust that some things are getting done, even if I'm not the one doing them, so that I can really lean into this, right? And then get this running, so I can kind of put that in some form of like running itself, and then get back, autopilot or whatever. And then I can focus on this now, right? And it's not about learning how to spin an innumerable amount of plates. It's about like really prioritizing that first and knowing I'm going to lean into this some days and I'm going to lean into this other days.
Well, we are in a mastermind together, and in that, about a month or 6 weeks ago, our coach, I'll just throw in another pod, Kari Peters, just to see how many of our sessions I can just bring in here. She had brought forward to us someone she heard speak and who had created a billion-dollar business. She was young, 35, this woman, and they were asking her what some of her business tips are. And one of them was, I was going to try to do it off the top of my head, but all of a sudden I'm feeling like I'm having a brain fart around it. Where is it? Oh, here we go. Sorry, we can edit this out. Here we go. So she didn't like the title work-life balance either. She called it work-life integration.
Yes.
And she was saying that she looked at it as having 3 buckets. So we just happen to have said 3 ourselves, and being able to fill those buckets weekly. But again, it's not that they're each being filled each day, right? So we're not having 3 buckets where each get the same amount each day. Some days, maybe the family bucket's really high, and nothing gets in the work bucket. And some days the work bucket's overflowing and the community bucket's empty. That's okay. It's about trying to strive for this integration and realizing every day, and best laid plans, right? You can wake up and think, I'm going to have this amazing work day, and 5,000 things get thrown in your way. And that's okay. But if you're thinking, oh, I've got to be balanced, then all of a sudden you're judging yourself, and you're, oh my God, you're setting yourself up for failure. But what if you just integrated, weaved, and ducked and balanced, or not balanced, but like weave and bounce? I don't know the word I'm looking for.
I like that. I love that. Weave and bounce.
I was trying to think of Muhammad Ali. Like, what is it? Sting like a butterfly?
Yeah. I know. It's like you're pivoting. Yeah. I like it.
Like a boxer.
Yeah. We kind of already started to talk about this, but we wanted to talk a little bit about what it's funny. It's like what prevents balance, or what makes us think that we're not in balance, right? What makes us even think that we're doing anything wrong?
Right.
Which we know, patriarchy. And also like just how women are I just was listening to We Can Do Hard Things this week about caregiver burnout. And it really wasn't
Mm,
about caregivers like me specifically, like people with, obvious medical needs. It was about everybody who's caregiving, which is most of us, because we have
yep.
kids, we're the sandwich generation. We have kids, we have parents, we have, again, a world of women thinking they're doing it wrong and they have no balance and they're just not enough time in the day and they're letting everyone down. And that really shined a light on the fact that in this country, unlike other countries that have a whole system of safety nets in place, like where you do have access to care, you're not expected to do it all yourself. That women are holding all the non-paid and underpaid roles on top of their actual jobs, right? So that's a big piece of this, is that it is like our system's success is really predicated on the fact that women will hold the society together because they always have.
Yep.
And it's like women and minorities, right? Like it's women and people of color and people in lower income brackets who are doing all the caretaking jobs and that are filling in the places that absolutely need to be covered, but with no compensation or grossly undercompensated. So that's a big thing, right?
And
Because
then feeling
how
like
are you
they're
going to
failing
ever,
at everything.
right? And then how are you ever going to feel balanced or like, that you can have downtime with some presence at all if so that's a huge thing holding
Yeah.
us back. And the more and more we're talking about it and really lobbying to get more improved systems in place, we're far from it. The closer we'll get to that if we ever do. So that's part of it, right?
No question. I mean, it's, I was looking as you were saying, I was trying to see, I just Googled work-life balance and it says, there's nothing in here that says there's no such thing. Like there's just a bunch of tips of how to get there. And it just makes me so angry because it just makes, I guess I was trying to see when this idea of work-life balance came up and where did it come from? Because again, it strikes me as one more way to make women feel less than. Because I don't know.
It's not a male concept, even though I know many
Exactly.
men who have struggled with this too.
Right.
But it isn't like we haven't
Once
ever.
again, patriarchy hurts men as well.
Yeah.
But that's my point. Like, I just feel like there's something there and I couldn't find it quick enough because everybody's telling me 12 tips how to achieve and maintain a good work-life balance.
Yes.
3 rules for better work. Fuck all of this. Sorry, it's just making me angry. I
Get
just
up.
shut down the phone.
I'm gonna guess there's something like get up earlier, drink more water,
Right.
meditate.
Right.
Like all those things.
Right.
None of those are bad things, by the way. I'm not trying to say them sarcastically. It's just that.
But it's just one
Like,
more way to make women feel less than.
Right. I love how Glennon Doyle was asking this woman. She was like, we all know to put on that oxygen mask, but really, what the hell is that? Right? Like,
Right.
when and where do we find one in the time that we have?
And is the plane already going down?
Yeah. Right. No, because we've been keeping it afloat.
Right.
We've been keeping those flaps going.
We've been doing it ourselves.
Yeah. I think like it's just, and then I wrote like stinking thinking, perfectionism, people pleasing is all wrapped up in the culture of women who are doing it all, expecting themselves to do it all, are criticizing themselves for not having it figured out and doing it better. They're assuming other women do have it figured out. And so it's like this just spiral that of course like then nobody's ever gonna feel in balance unless they're like at a yoga retreat, right?
And even then, I'm not great at balancing. No, I'm actually really good at it at this point. But anyways, it just, as you were talking, it just struck me as the modern version of the 50s housewife who does all the things and then still has her makeup and her hair and her dress and dinner on the table and the cocktail for the husband and and he gets to come home and sit while she still does everything until the kids go to bed, until she goes to bed. It just feels like a different version of that. That's why I'm wondering if this came around in like the 80s or the late 70s when women were really starting to be in the workplace. Like, it just feels like a concept that was set up to make us feel like shit.
Yeah, I think I was even more aware of it when I was becoming a coach, because it is, like you said, there's a lot of people out there to help people with that, help them enjoy. And I mean, it is such a bad thing, right? Because we work with a lot of successful women who
Yeah.
have no ability to connect to any joy around the success they've created because they have no time.
Right.
So it's a huge piece of why you and I do what we do.
Yep.
So it's not something that Lisa and I are here going, this is bullshit completely, because we get it. We get that, like, the goal here is to be more present and enjoy your life. And to maybe let go of this idea that there's some equation or way
Right.
to look balanced and have it all and do it all, because that is actually a big lie. So
Right.
it really feels more like defining for yourself, right? Defining for yourself, like, first of all, what would be joyful for me? Because I had a coach ask me once recently, and it just kind of stunned me. It was like, do you really want what you say you want? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a great question to ask yourself all the time. Do you want, you say you want balance. What does that even mean?
Right.
And what do you really want? And ask yourself that. So, like, defining it, a yoga instructor used to always say, and we did retreats together, and she would just beautifully demonstrate this with her yoga body. Like, you got to ground down to rise up. Like, look at nature, right?
Yep.
Trees have to have a really great root system before they get really big and broad and tall and wide, right? You got to ground down before you rise up. Like, I think this is about, like, defining and then slowing down
Mm-hmm.
and really rooting in and figuring out, like, okay, what really, if like a bunch of things got taken away and I was on a desert island, and, like, what would be the most important thing for me to maintain about my life, right?
Yeah.
And then, like, what is that? And kind of branch out from there, right? And with
Mm-hmm.
self-compassion. So I feel like we're kind of, like, circling around, like, define it for yourself with a lot of self-compassion, and then and like, reach out. You can't do this alone.
And slow down, celebrate, allow for integration. Those
Yeah.
moments when you're done with something or you've reached a certain place, a goal or whatever, don't just do thank you next. Like, stop and integrate and celebrate what you have accomplished. That, I think that's the other thing that women do, because we're so used to spinning so many plates that when we set one plate down because we're done, we pick another plate up, and we never ever stop and just be. Because that moment when we be is when we start feeling guilt. I should be doing something else. I should be doing something else,
Right. We go back, we snap back into human doing versus
Mm,
human being. It's so
correct.
true.
Correct. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we're just coming up with off these with these ideas off the top of our head, but
It's good
yeah,
stuff.
it is good stuff.
It is good stuff. And what's interesting is, I think you and I have both at different times and together gotten really good at this. And yet life can still pull us into it, right?
100%.
We can still, because we're capable, right? Because we're capable, we can still be like, yeah, I can volunteer for that, of course, because I love it. I love the arts, or, like, you love Charlotte School. I love, you know what I mean? Like, and not, those things aren't
Wait, we're gonna
necessarily a
have to
bad
edit.
thing to do.
Wait, hold up. We're gonna have to edit. You froze. So you
Oh,
said because we're capable, and then you started to say capable and you got stuck, or you froze. So
shit. I wonder what just
I
happened.
mean,
Okay.
sorry, YouTube, but
Yeah.
we're editing this for the
Yeah.
pod. So
Shoot, where was I? Oh, just that, because we're capable, because we have the capacity, we just, it's just in our nature to meet a need, right? And
yes.
and we could get really into, again, like, all the people pleasing and all the other stuff that we're all trying to outgrow. But even when you got that down, like, I can do it, and I would do it really well. So,
Yeah.
it's like, where you love Charlotte School, and, like, I want to support Miles's team. Like, there are things that we can do. And I think that the great challenge to ourselves is to be, like, really mindful of how many things you're saying yes to, when what you say you want is balance, ease, joy, presence, right? So, like, you get to filter everything through that question. If
I
I
love
say
that.
yes to this, is it in service of that, or is it one of those things that slows me down from that, right? And everyone, that's different for everyone, because for some people that is actually connecting with other people to join something like that. You'll meet people, you might feed yourself in different ways, you might really nurture a gift of yours you haven't used in a while. So, like, for one person to do that would be excellent. For you on a certain day to do it would be too extra. you know?
Well, again, when you say yes to something, you have to say no to something else. So if you say yes to this, is it going to fill you up? Is it going to make you feel purposeful? But what are you going to have to say no to instead? And you're right. I love that you said Charlotte School, because we're in the midst of production of their plays. And, there is many people in this school and many parents, because there's 28 people in Cabaret. So that's a lot of parents that can help. But we get these texts, and it's like, who can go to Long Beach and pick up props? And it's like every fiber of my being not to be like, I can do it. Cause I'm like, dude, I'm not the only mom of a kid in Cabaret.
Right.
So it is, but there's probably some self-talk that has to happen in there.
Yeah.
And so that taking that moment to ask yourself, is this driving me forward? Is this going to help in harmony, or is this going to throw me off? Just that question gives you a moment to not act impulsively, act from emotion, but really be logical about, does this serve the greater good of myself?
Everything you just said, I think I want to quote it. Go back to that, but I really love this. And we have talked a little bit about doing a whole episode on boundaries, probably more than one. And that's exactly what this is boiling down to. Call it balance, call it harmony, call it ease, call it joy, call it flow, call it freedom. None of it is achievable without some boundaries.
No question. So again, we'll add that to 2024.
Yes.
Because we don't have any more room to add any more pods.
I think we have like Q1 all booked out.
We pretty much do it. We literally do, because I was looking at the spreadsheet the other day. It's like, oh wow, we have topics through March. So yay us.
Amazing. Yeah.
Again, this is an amazing topic, and I feel like it's going to resonate with a lot of women as they listen to it, because we said this with the Wheel of Life, but I don't think there's a woman on earth who has an inner dialogue who isn't constantly juggling in her brain all the things she wants to do, she has to do, she feels like she's supposed to do. And so maybe it is, like you said, a list. Write down all the things you think you should, quote unquote, do, and what you want in life, and see where it intersects. And those are the things you do. And that's how you find harmony. And yeah, I don't know what else to say.
And another way you could make that the list of the things you want to give a shit about and the things you have no fucks left for.
Hallelujah.
There you go. Shits and fucks.
There you go. 2 columns.
All right. Should we do our song?
Yes, please.
So when this airs, it might be right around the time I'm going to see them live.
Nice.
Depeche Mode, which it wasn't my favorite band in the 80s, but it was definitely a band that Brendan really loved. And when we were dating back then, we used to listen to
I love
music a lot.
But I don't think of them as the front runner for me either. But I swear we've been listening to a lot of Depeche Mode here recently as well, and I really love them.
I know there's just so much. It's a lot of music. Obviously, we've talked about as a time machine, and certain songs of theirs bring me right back to a certain car on a certain road, with just with a certain feeling and a smell of some cheesy 80s perfume. I'm not sure, but anyway, just really.
What is it?
White Shoulders or something. I don't know. I didn't wear that one.
I was gonna go with Paco Rabanne for a guy. That was that was the quintessential 80s cologne for a guy.
I almost think like my aunt had Ralph Lauren perfume, like Lauren, and I think I borrowed that, and that smell reminds me a lot of those times. It's funny. Yeah. Anyway, the song is Get the Balance Right. So here's the lyrics, or some of the lyrics. Get the balance right. Get the balance right. When you think you've got a hold of it all, you haven't got a hold at all. When you reach the top, get ready to drop. Prepare yourself for the fall. You're going to fall. It's almost predictable. Almost.
I think that nails it. Thanks, Dave Gahan. I mean, or Martin, whoever wrote the lyrics to that. That's pretty much it in a nutshell right there.
It's true. It's true.
I love it.
There's so much more we could riff on here. I love this conversation. But that's it for this week's episode. Have you joined our mailing list yet? Because if you do, you're going to automatically receive our top 10 ways to start giving less fucks and start enjoying life more. and something like that, right? It's like top
Yeah.
10 list to end. And you'll also be in the know about our weekly episodes with lots of links to things that are relevant to those episodes. And you'll also be in the know of announcements about opportunities in the new year to gather in person. So we would love for you to go to thethingsweknowpodcast.com and click on top 10 ways to start giving less fucks, or click on the button that says join our mailing list. They're both there. And you will start receiving from us once a week.
Yeah, we've been, and I'm going to give full credit to Kari. Kari's been writing these emails and they're really good. And it's just, it's the show notes expanded, which is helpful, and all the links and the things we talk about that we refer to. So it is, you might think to yourself, good Lord, I don't need another email, but I promise you, you will be happy. These are short and sweet and you get all the goods. And the most important part is there will be announcements in the new year to gather in person, which we are very excited about.
And if you ever had ideas for us, all you have to do is hit reply on that and it goes directly to us and one of us will reply.
Yep, which is I'm also super excited about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, well, that's it for the things we know this week. As always, thank you very much for listening, and we will be back next week.
Bye.